So this is the game we play. We are born. And in this episode, what we're calling that is you are given a human.
The one you live in.
To live inside of.
Yeah.
For a handful of decades.
There you go. If you're lucky. Yeah.
Yeah. So we start that with that, and then we work through to, so we've got this human. Isn't it cute? What can it do? What can't it do?
What won't it do? What will it do? And how do you drive it through the culture, this human of yours?
This is our episode that we have for you today, and we'll see you on the other side.
Enjoy. Hi, I'm Martha Beck.
And I'm Rowan Mangan, and this is another episode of Bewildered. You've been here before. You know us. We're the Bewildered ones. This is the podcast for people trying to figure it out.
Which we always are, sadly. On and on we go. Ro, what are you trying to figure out these days?
I think it's been a while since I've brought to the listener one of the many things I'm trying to figure out about you, my love.
About me?
Yeah. You sound so surprised.
Moi?
And yet you are such a mystery.
I am a mystery to myself.
Yeah.
What is this? I'm feeling very vulnerable.
Oh, no, there's no need. So there's this thing between us where I have a way of needing the exact right tool for every job. And you have this thing where you can make anything that's lying around the tool for that job.
Mm-hmm. I pride myself. Yeah.
Yeah. And you should. But I just suddenly this morning had this memory back in the summer when we were sweet summer children and we had no idea what was in store for us. Mm. And you were training for your anxiety walk, as I recall. And you were going out every morning and strolling along.
Yeah.
So off you went in the morning, training away. It was summer. It was beautiful. And one of the things you'll find with walking in summertime, and I think our listeners will agree, is that at a certain point, you're going to want a little hydration.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's what streams and puddles are for.
And you would have done that too, but you're just ever so slightly more civilized than that, just very slightly. And so you thought, no problem. What I'm going to do is I'm going to get a water bottle, which I applauded you for. I could not see anything wrong with that. Water bottle, sure, you can carry water in it, right? And so off you would go. And Marty, I once drove past you.
Yes.
And you were out there walking. Very impressive figure that you cut.
Walking, yes. I can walk. Did you know this?
You were striding out across the landscape. And carrying in your hand not so much a bottle of, it was a bottle of water. Mm. I can't misrepresent that. You know, for the listener, I want to paint a word picture.
Okay.
You know, you eat in a diner and they have plastic bottles that there'll be a red one. That's for the ketchup. Okay. There'll be a yellow one. What's that for, Marty?
Mustard.
Traditionally, it's for mustard.
Yes.
So as you strode very impressively across the landscape, were you or were you not carrying a yellow mustard bottle?
It was only $1. I got a mustard, ketchup, and mayo bottles for $1. It was 33 cents. I ask you, are you going to get a more economic water bottle than that?
I swear to God, I was not querying the economic rationalism of your decision. I was just.
Were you under the impression that I was sucking mustard as I walked?
I was not because I do know you slightly better. But it's still baffling to me that would. I mean, let's not even go into that's not enough water. I would have needed liters, but it literally had a picture of a diner waitress.
Yeah,
on the bottle.
Yeah.
And she's looking for it. So there I am. For those watching on YouTube, what does it, I can't get it in focus, mustard. It literally says mustard. And then if you weren't getting that it was a mustard bottle from a diner, there's a diner waitress figure holding the mustard bottle as
I
like,
also use it for watercolor.
but it's like a dream within a dream. It's like Inception. It's like a mustard bottle. Like on the mustard bottle is painted a picture of someone holding the mustard bottle. It's really deep. It's very deep. Anyway, you will never be completely figured out to me. And I love that about you.
You, on the other hand, would only use this bottle ever for mustard. Correct? And if you got some other condiment, say, I don't know, horseradish, and you needed to have a bottle for it, and the mustard bottle was available but empty, you would buy a horseradish bottle rather than put horseradish in the mustard bottle. True or false?
Actually, I need to go back one step because I wouldn't put like it's not mustard is not specific enough for me. I would need a bottle that said Dijon mustard or whatever, like yellow mustard. I can't. It's yeah. So it's all moot. It's all
Don't
moot.
turn the eggs with that spatula. We have a special egg spatula for when you're doing easy over, as opposed to scrambled.
And that's
there
how
are
everything
so many
works.
tools in our house. You are Homo habilis is the tool using ape. You
I
are
don't
like
know, some sort of homo.
habilis.
Marty, what are you trying to figure out?
I'm trying to figure out our car.
Oh,
that
gosh.
car that we did purchase, which is a wonderful car. I will not say the name of it.
Can you give me
brand.
a clue, though?
It's the one I drive to take the dogs for a walk.
Okay. Got it.
And when we got it, our insurance agent who got us the insurance for this car was beyond thrilled because apparently it's very, very safe. He was like, oh, God, this car is safe. It is so. We just sat there blankly waiting for him to do the
actually
paperwork.
Talked about this on a podcast before. He seemed to be having some sort of sexual epiphany.
He did. Okay, but that's not my point. My point is that the engineers who designed this car had this bizarre obsession with people needing the radio to go on automatically.
Ah, yes.
I picture them sitting in meetings every day when I get into this car and have to deal with this issue. I think of them sitting around going, okay, so what can we do to make this car really special? Well, the second you turn it on, the radio goes on full volume.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, always, 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 always. Doesn't matter if it's turned off, it goes on. All right. When you
Wait, sir, but what about if they turned it off before they shut the car off before?
No matter. It
Really?
turns on anyway. And when they stop the car, if the radio is off, it'll turn on then.
When they stop the car, the radio will turn on.
Yes, it will. What do people really want when they're backing up? Say to maneuver through a parking lot. I know the radio should turn on automatically.
KCMW, classic hits.
What if, say they've got the little phone service on linking with the car and they make a phone call. Well, clearly the radio should go on. And it's always like the polka station at full volume.
Like the polka? Polka?
Yeah,
like that's what you mean?
Polka.
Okay. I was
It's a
thinking
wonderful
polka,
genre.
like
for all you
royal
polka
flush.
lovers out there. It's a fabulous genre of music. But it's either that or it's like some weird arch conservative radio station or something. It's never somebody in that car design team managed to get this through all the barriers that there are to the different gizmos. What made them all think we need the radio to go on every time we change lanes?
I think
don't.
deep existential fear of silence.
You know what? I think you're right. This just went from light comedy to deep, deep tragedy. The people at this particular car thing are just sitting around going, somebody turn the radio on. I cannot stand my thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And when you drive, you're prone to think.
Yeah, even if it's like, am I about to run over something as I reverse?
Right. You don't want that thought. Here's the polka station. Yeah, I cannot figure it out. Can't figure it out.
No one can.
Anyway, it's like, did I ever tell you, you do know how many levels of investigation medications go through to get to the public? They have to go through all these boards. And I once was on a medication that had passed all those review boards. And it was because I couldn't stop feeling like I needed to pee.
Yep.
So they literally gave me a medication called Urispaz.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
It was to calm spasms of urine, I suppose. Sorry, this was unrelated. The car, I think what happened is the guy who named Eurospaz went over to this car company and he said, look, I don't know cars, but I have some great ideas.
I'm an ideas man.
Yeah, he's an ideas man. So, if y'all have a car that does this too, perhaps we can commiserate online at some point. Anyway, I haven't figured it out.
No, clearly.
Haven't figured it out. But let's get to it. Let's talk about our topic for the day.
Hi there. I'm Ro, and I'll be your podcaster for today. Do you know how to tip your podcaster? It's actually pretty easy. You can rate our pod with lots of stars. All your stars. You can review it with your best superlatives. You can even subscribe or follow Bewildered so you'll never miss an episode. Then, of course, if you're ready to go all in, our paid online community is called Wilder, a sanctuary for the bewildered. And I can honestly say it's one of the few true sanctuaries online. You can go to wildercommunity.com to check it out. Rate, review, subscribe, join, and you all have a great day now.
What's our topic for the day, Rowie?
Well, Marty, I'm so glad you asked, because our topic for today is kind of about the game of life, I guess you could say. I mean, as you know, it wouldn't be Bewildered if we weren't going to plunge deep into a metaphor that we can't fully ever unpack, right? But I'm going to tell you and the listener about this game that we're all playing here, right? I'll tell you some of the rules and how they work, right?
Okay.
So this doesn't really explain the topic of the podcast, but I'm building to it.
Okay.
Imagine you're in a car and someone's about to blare a radio at you.
Yes. And you're building. Build some more, Rowie.
Let me build. Here we go. So at the beginning of the game, we all get a human.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah. So here you're given your human, you're given your human, you're given your human.
You don't mean you are a human who owns a human. You're just you get a body, a human body.
Right. You are given the full equipment of one kind of human or another at the beginning of the game called life.
Yes.
Boom. You've been given your human.
Yeah.
You get a human and you get a human. Right.
That's right.
So this human will be ours for the duration. And even though we're going to have some say over what it ultimately does, it's going to turn out to some extent the way it's going to turn out. Like it's a human. I mean, bless. At the end of the day, it's a human. It can only do so much. And so it'll have a personality and it'll have preferences. And, I'll be completely honest, sometimes those personalities and preferences may not be what we ourselves might have chosen or what the culture might have chosen.
Oh, right. Definitely.
Did you notice
Here we
just
are with our culture,
that in?
coming from consensus, which is culture, to coming to our senses, which is nature. So you're saying that nature doesn't always give us the body that our culture would have wanted us to have, yeah?
Body, brain, the whole shebang. So, Marty, tell me about what sort of human you got this time around.
Goodness. I got a small, warped human. It hunches around. It needs way too much sleep. It loves to color, and it loves animals and babies. It habitually forgets its favorite activity is forgetting appointments. And then when gently nudged, you just say to it, Marty, do you have an appointment right now? And it gives its alarm call, which is, oh, shit. But much, much, much louder than that. It also, oh my gosh, it cannot human like the other humans when it comes to human things that humans do together. It cannot do a party. It cannot do a crowd. It cannot do a party at a crowd or a crowded party. It definitely can't do crowds and parties with people drinking and loud music and the radio turning on in the car. It can't. I've taken it to so many parties and it just can't. It leaves. I have no control.
The worst thing about it for your human, I imagine, is that it goes running out of the party and gets in the car. The radio turns on.
Because humans, they seem to want loud sounds from other humans all times.
And we didn't get those humans this time around. We weren't blessed with those humans.
So what kind of human did you get, Rowie?
I'm glad you asked. I had like an encounter where I got a great deal of insight into my human recently, and it's kind of the little moment in my life that kicked off this whole episode. I'm going to tell you about it in some detail, and it may not sound like a big deal, but for me, I really felt like I connected with my human in that moment, which was my my human had wanted some shoes for dropping off the child in.
Okay. Because there can only be one tool for a specific task. You wear a different pair of shoes to drop off your child as opposed to, I don't know, walking yourself.
It's to do with the fact that one wears slippers in the winter and the slippers slip off, so the shoes should slip on. I'm not going to go into it in a great deal of detail. Well, no, I am actually. Let me tell you.
Each object must be precise and calculated to match your animal's proportions. Do not buy Rowie any gifts and send them to her because they will have to fit her proportions and her human's demands.
My human is very particular. And I just had this moment because a lot of the time, and the point of this episode is a lot of the time we forget that we're not our human. We sort of get into, we look out from our human's eyes. So we think that that's who we are. And I had this like moment of separation from that. And it was like I got home from dropping off our daughter and it was time to take off the dropping off daughter shoes and put the slippers back on for, indeed, I had returned to the house where the slippers are. So there I was in the mudroom where the slippers and the shoes are kept, obviously. And I slipped up. Well, anyway, it's sort of a physical moment, but let's just say I watched my human slip off her shoes in a very specific way, slip on her slippers in a very specific way, put her shoes on a shelf and bask for a moment quietly to herself in the perfection of what had just happened with the shoes. Now, my human has not actually been diagnosed with OCD, but I hasten to add, nor has she ever been assessed for it. So,
I said nothing.
Yeah. So my human is like that, but only 50% of the time. The other 50% of the time, she's running around. She doesn't have any shoes. She can't find them. She hasn't seen them for a week and a half. And that's how it is. And somewhere are all the shoes for every possible occasion. And she has no fucking idea where she left them. So, it's I think sometimes we have to recognize that, that's a real thing to have to walk around in a human like that.
That's true. Wow, you made it through that turnover from shoes to slippers and back again. Yeah. Really, really well, which your human cared about.
Oh, she was so happy. She was so happy. And I was happy for her, quite honestly. I was happy for her. And that was quite a countercultural moment, dare I say it, right? Because...
How so?
Well, what does culture say about how we should treat our humans in this game, right? Do you think it would be fair to say the culture says your human should be a beast of burden?
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Work that human, ride it hard and put it away wet, right?
Yep. And I would go further. I would say there is no such thing as you having a human. You are nothing but the body and mind and personality that is walking around looking human. That is all you are. And the sense that you are looking out from it doesn't come into our culture. I guess into some it does, but not into ours. And by the way, you'd better damn well control the thing. Make sure that your body looks and acts and sleeps and parties and does everything the way the culture prescribes. Yes, and you can. That's part of it. You can. If you really tried, you could.
Yeah. Oh, and it's such a relief when you can sort of come to realize that you don't have to be the human at all. You can just sort of, ride it around like a horse a bit. And in doing that, and I guess that's what we're talking about today, it's like learning when you let it have its head a little bit and trot forward and go eat some lovely grass. And when you're more like, hey, I think we need to go over here now.
So you have more. You have a relationship that is influential but not controlling. Is that fair to say? With your human,
I'd like to say that was the case. I can't say that it always is,
but it's a nice goal.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Nice.
It's so interesting to me that I see things like I just bought a book by an Indian guru whom I love, and it's called "You Are Not Your Body." And I was like, okay. So I started, and it's literally just this man talking for an hour about you may think you're your body and your mind, but you aren't. And I don't know. I never, ever, ever felt like I was this body or this mind. Have you ever felt like you are your body, mind? Did you grow out of that or something?
I feel like, I think I'm a weirdo in many ways, and so I wouldn't like to speculate. But I think for many of us, it's like I don't know, I've never felt like my body or my mind, not for a single second.
Yeah.
But I think for some of us, there's kind of there's a subculture within our general sort of, you call it the weird cultures, Western, whatever, industrialized, where within a certain kind of yoga, new agey sort of set, there's an understanding that we're not our body. I think but I guess what is fun to push towards, and what we can talk about today a bit, is that we are also not our mind. We are not a personality. Yeah. I think that's a bit more of a stretch sometimes. Yeah. Not for everyone, and I know there'll be a ton of the cahoot who are just like, yeah, no, duh. But
right. I'm going to push this one step further, and it may freak people out, but I have just always felt this way. And I remember I said it to Karen once before we knew you. And her response to this was to call as many people as she could find to come over and just hang out.
Wait, what did you say to her? I'm not clear on what you said.
I said to her, I've never felt human. I'm in a human, but I'm not, I'm going to die. I'm not, this is not what I am. And she got really, really unnerved by that.
Well, I can see that for Carrie Koo, it would be like, she doesn't think she's a human. You know what this calls for? Shit ton of humans. We'll get some humans in here. We'll teach her how to human.
Oh, and the worst thing I can deal with is a bunch of humans. Anyway, so I don't know if I've just said something incredibly radical that is going to upset people and make them want to come after us with pitchforks or something. I didn't think it was that big a deal. I've never felt human. Have you ever felt human?
No. Nah. Well, no. If you ask me that question, I'll say no. But do I go around as though I think it? Yeah, of course.
Oh, yeah, sure.
I'm still, pulling up my pants or whatever. It's not like I'm floating around.
With the special grip instrument you get for pulling up that particular pair of pants. And if you can't find that instrument, you're just screwed. There with your pants around your ankles the whole day long.
Do you think there is one?
I bet there is, honey. I know you'll be Googling it as soon as we're off this podcast. Okay, so really seriously, the reason I liked Asian philosophy and meditation when I came to it in my early adulthood was that this whole thing of you are not your body personality is just kind of stipulated there. And the whole idea of meditation is that you become the observing presence, this thing that is watching you affably from a short distance or from inside, and you don't try to force your human to be something that the culture wants. You're watching it. As an observer, you're seeing it with some kind of fondness, and that it actually, instead of separating you from it and giving you less control, it actually gives you more efficacy. Your human starts to cooperate with you more. It's just like befriending any other animal. When you know its nature, you know sort of the parameters in which it can function, and if you love the animal, you don't try to force it out of those limits. But culture will say, take control and make it what we say. Make
Right.
your human be a morning person. Make your human love parties. My human is not a morning person, and it doesn't love parties. It can't morning. It can't party. It has tried.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think when you let your human do what it's built for and just like nudge it a little bit when it gets off track so that, everyone gets fed and wears a sweater or whatever, then your human's going to like work better. Like it's going to be better at humaning. And I guess what I want to say quickly with that is I don't mean that your human is going to become a more productive cog in the machine and make more money for Jeff Bezos. That's not what I mean. I mean, it will, what do I mean? I mean,
function.
Yeah, it'll just enjoy humaning more, and whatever the game is for this individual perspective, for this point of attention that each of us gets to hover behind somewhere, like then we get to do that more. Like we're more likely to.
The thing that your human is born to do, you get to do that.
Yeah.
It's like if you took animals and tried, and you had an otter and you decided the otter was not allowed to go in the water ever, and it had to act like a dog or something. It's like culture wants everybody to act like a certain animal, and your animal may be different from other animals. Okay, I've made an exaggerated difference by making it different species. But let's take two dogs, a water dog, like a golden retriever or a Labrador retriever, and maybe a guardian dog like a chow chow.
Right, and there's a third dog, which is the kind of dog that can only speak in animal metaphors when it tries to explain things.
Sorry.
I love it. I love that dog.
Shit. Yeah, but every single creature has its own profile of preferred activities, and it groups by species, but it's different for individuals. So, and culture is all about homogenization, make everything the same. So, of course, I love this idea of find out what your human does and let it do. But unless we go completely off the grid and live in the woods, we have to sort of negotiate inside our human as we move through culture. It's like you're inside your human. And like when I'm coaching people, we often figure out, oh, this is the kind of human I am, but that's not what is wanted at my company. So we make up cover stories and go-to behaviors to help the human feel okay doing what it wants, but look to the culture like it's doing what the culture wants. It's just a little bit of deception. It's not there to hurt anyone, but you have to get a cover story and a sort of cover act to go through culture without getting people's eyebrows raised and voices raised.
I'm going to push back a little bit about that. I think we can raise the odd eyebrow. I think to some extent it's our job to raise the odd eyebrow, actually.
Right. Which of my eyebrows is the odd one? Which, I don't know what that means.
Oh, well, that's just, look, my human speaks that way. What can I say? I think the thing is that when we're talking about how to train our human to like go among the culture, to go among the humans, it's sort of like giving, it's like very much like in parenting, where it's about, like, I always think, well, I have needed, my human personally has needed to have a certain degree of cultural literacy, as in I know how to talk when I go to the DMV, and because of that they let me drive a car, which is handy.
Yes. This is what I was trying to explain. You're doing a better job.
Thank you. Thank you. And so it's like, so I'm so overwhelmed by the compliment. I just completely lost my train of thought. Yeah, like we need to understand the culture so that we can be undercover in the culture while letting our human to the extent that we can, which is actually quite a lot if you're good at playing the game.
I love undercover in the culture. I love the idea of conspiring to be free while appearing to be in the culture.
Oh, that's fun, isn't it? That's the game. Maybe that's the game. Like, and so we learn to kind of work with our human. Once we've got that degree of cultural literacy, we can sort of work with our human, like when I used to work in a university library many years ago, many years ago, my human does not like offices, and it very much does not like going to offices every day. I can remember when I started my first full-time job, and it was like my alarm goes off and you're like, they can't expect me to do that again. I literally just did that twice in a row. Like this is not, and honestly this is one of those things that like I'm being silly about, but it was a bit of a non-negotiable for my human. Like it was genuinely,
it is for me,
really hard for me to do full-time work in an office. And but
how do I mean, I literally can't understand how that's possible.
But I've done enough of it that I see that for a lot of people it is a really viable way of life. And I respect,
to be.
Hey, I respect their way of life. I just ask them, don't rub it in my face all the time, you know?
I keep remembering, I know I've said this before, but about when I quit academia, and I said, I am so depressed when I go into my office that the only way I could keep this job is to go on massive antidepressants. And the dean of this college said, well, I'm on antidepressants. And it was like, how many people are drugging themselves insensate because their humans don't love an office, but they go there every day.
Yeah. And I will say some humans, I think, do enjoy an office. And, there's that too. But
it's possible.
When the culture tells you that something is right for you and it's not, that can be a real pickle, right?
But didn't you figure out ways at the library?
Yeah. So I worked there for about 7 years, and over time I began to learn the system really well. And so the first thing was I might have talked about this before on the podcast, but I figured out this, now we were in Australia, so there were a lot more options for workers. There was a lot more protections and rights for workers enshrined in law. And one of the things I discovered that was possible to do is, I'm not going to go into it, but there was a policy that meant that I could take a small pay cut and work 4 days a week. And then,
nice.
Yeah, that was lovely. Then I cut that down to 3 days a week by rewriting my position description as a part-time one, creating a new position description, hiring someone into that position description, and fucking off.
Damn. See, that's the ultimate outcome of putting only Dijon mustard in a Dijon mustard bottle. You know how to work a system. I would have just gone in there and tried to hang on until I had a nervous breakdown and then cause an enormous scene and probably end up in captivity somewhere.
There was a time in, I think, late 2010, that I did take a month off and watch every season of Survivor. So I'm not saying that I was without that. But so anyway, it's like this thing where I just came to the office less and less and less until I completely disappeared.
I love that. I think it's an incredible how to train your human to slowly disappear from situations it doesn't enjoy. Is that how we come to our senses? How do we come to our senses? We're all being pushed to drive our humans, number one, as though they are us, and number two, as though they fit the culture's prescriptions. It doesn't work. So how do we come to our senses?
We'll tell you in just a moment. So, how does one train one's human, aka how do we come to our senses?
Yeah.
Martha Beck, take it away.
Well, this is where my human likes to jump in. Somebody asked me how to do something. I don't care if I've ever even heard of it. I will tell you how. And there will be steps because my human loves steps.
I think there should be like a kind of like offshoot episode or something that's just called What to Do If Your Human Turns Out to Be a Life Coach.
Oh my God, it's horrible. I tried so hard to be anything else, but it loves it. What can I say? It's a dorky little human. Yeah. So anyway, if you're going to come to your senses and you decide you've got this concept now. Okay, I have a human. I've been given a human, and it has these characteristics, and they're not all malleable. Some of them I can't negotiate. The first step, and we've already mentioned it in passing, and that is to take the sort of amused compassionate observer position. So
Yeah.
instead of thinking of yourself as human, and people might have trouble with this, but I just have never had human as an identity, ontologically speaking. Ontologically, I was asking her out, is it ontologically or epistemologically? And she knew.
Yeah.
Ontologically means...
Well, ontologically means as it relates to being.
Yes, and epistemology as it relates to thinking. So ontologically, you decide that you are someone who simply is. That's the ultimate ontological position. I am. I exist. I don't have to define what I am. I just know that I am. Mm-hmm. And I seem to be driving around in the body, brain, personality of this particular human.
And the radio will not turn off.
It will not freaking stop turning on. Oh, it'll turn off, but not by itself. And then it turns on by itself. Sorry, I'm getting a little clamped again.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you're kind of... Then you can be sort of gentle and amused by the peccadillos of one's human.
But not like mean amused, like fondly loving amused.
Yeah. Because it's just, I mean, somebody carried a brand new baby past me in the grocery store the other day. And that's one thing my human does. I will follow a human baby as if I'm stalking it, but only to smell its head, really, truly. And I watch that characteristic of me, and then I look at that little baby and think, I feel the same amused sweetness for us as I do for that tiny, tiny baby. That's all we really are. Yeah. We never get much past the little, what am I doing here? Yeah. And they're so darling. They're so adorable.
I know. And so like, it's almost like a practice that we can develop to step back and view our human in that way. And that's sort of what we were kind of trying to model, I guess, a little bit in the last segment, where it's like, oh, what a silly human. Look at it.
That's what you felt when you changed from slippers to shoes and back again. You were just like, oh, that's adorable.
You look at you, cutie. You have to have it that way, don't you? You just have to. You funny little thing.
It's like my beagle used to jump up every morning, land on my tummy on the bed. He'd jump up, and then he would roll over. And my job was to scratch his tummy, and he would lick my wrist while I scratched his tummy. Mm-hmm. And then he would roll over again. He'd give one howl, and then we would go out to breakfast. And that is just, not all beagles do that. That was just Cookie the Beagle. Oh, I love that dog.
Oh, yeah, dogs are really good at making rituals, and so are our humans, I think.
That's true. And look for the rituals your human loves.
Yeah.
Because allowing your human to do its rituals is very sweet.
It is.
Yeah.
So our first step to come to our senses and train our little cutie pie of a human is that we step out a little bit and go, oh, you, look at you doing your thing. What do you do next?
Oh, yes, more steps. Oh, good. So step 2, after you've taken that sort of change of ontological identity, is to sort of become like Jane Goodall watching primates. Like, she watched chimps, but start to walk around. She would walk around for years. She would go out with a little notebook and look for these chimpanzees just to watch them do what they did. And she would write things about them in her little notebook. And you don't have to have a literal little notebook, but to think of yourself as Jane Goodall watching yourself, well, the human you've got as a chimp, with that kind of scrupulous attention. Like, you become very present when you start to really have to write down, in anthropology, they call it thick description. Like, really notice what your human is doing and what it likes. Become Jane Goodall.
So my human, like, I can totally see how become Jane Goodall is your human's way, your human step 2. My human step 2 is become Diane Fossey. Gorillas in the Mist. Right, similar time frame, except she accidentally got murdered for being not very respectful of the local people. But
yeah, humans did not respect the local people.
No, but this is the point: is also get your notebook if you're that way inclined. That's all right. But also, like, I just want to put in a good word for like crossing all professional boundaries, and make friends with your human and hold hands with it sometimes, even if you're not supposed to. Also, she faked having appendicitis before she left to go to Rwanda because you weren't allowed to go if you had an appendix, and she couldn't afford to get the surgery.
Wait. You can't go to Rwanda if you have an appendix?
Look,
doesn't that mean in a book?
Louis Leakey
Okay.
famously recruited Jane Goodall, Diane Fossey, and another woman who went to Indonesia or Malaysia for orangutans. I can't remember her name.
Mm-hmm.
Those three. He liked getting young women and sending them off to be among the apes.
It does seem to be a bit of a pattern of his human, right?
Yeah, and I think it was one of his conditions is thou shalt not have an appendix when one goes among the great apes.
Oh, because it might rupture and then you'd be in trouble.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
That was not, as it turned out, Diane Fossey's biggest problem. It was more like machete to the head, kind of, that's not nice. Sorry, my human can be a bit irreverent sometimes.
You think? Yeah, and I mean, she was an interesting human, that one. Like I think she was probably quite neurodivergent, and she was very good with gorillas, but I don't think I would hear stories at Harvard where, I don't know if you know this, I went there.
Oh, wait, what?
School.
You went to Harvard?
I personally did.
Something about that
and
makes me thirsty.
She had come to give a lecture there, and apparently her behavior was just incredibly odd. And she was at the home of a professor, and his 7-year-old daughter came in, and there was a whole group gathered to hear her talk, and apparently she just went off the hinges at this child, and she was like, "Child, be gone," and like very odd behavior, and her inability to like get her human to negotiate the humanness of other humans, I think ultimately tragically contributed to her early demise.
Yeah,
So
I used to love her so much that I did my hair like her. She had this way of doing a plait that was like you did.
That means
sorry,
a braid.
Sorry, braid. Sorry, I have a different vocabulary. Sorry, I come from a different country. God. She had to braid her hair on the side for some reason. It was like the
because that's
Diane
how
Fossey
gorillas do it, obviously.
Right. Got it.
She wanted to blend in.
So she could go among a culture. It just wasn't a human culture.
Yeah. Yeah. And she really was an extraordinary person. And it's like, and this is step 3, really.
Okay.
No matter how odd your particular human may seem to the culture, accept it. The things you cannot change. I mean, if you, for example, if you moved to a different country and you needed to learn another language in order to get
American.
along, yeah, that's right. So you don't talk about plets here so much. Only with gorillas and Diane Fossey and Australians.
I'm American. I braid my hair and eat freedom fries. Dated reference.
At the same time, sometimes I accidentally braid a freedom fry into my plait.
It's delicious.
The gorillas want to bite it.
Okay, God, this is coming off the rails.
This is a serious podcast, darn it. So, but like you, if I moved to a different country, I would want to be able to change the language that I spoke. I would make a big cultural change and be fine with it, is what I'm saying.
Gotcha.
But there are certain things about your human that if you try to change that human, it will be fundamentally unhappy and not itself. And once you've identified a thing like that, your job is then to start accepting the things you cannot change about your human. Yes.
So in that scenario, we ourselves, however we're identifying the we that is not our human, we take the form of the culture then by saying, "Thou shalt not be like this," even though thou
we become
clearly
the cultural
are like this.
Yeah, we become the overseer and the jail warden and our own torturer if we don't accept the things we cannot change about ourselves.
What's your human? What do you want to change about your human, or how do you accept? What do you accept?
My human, I'm going to confess this because I have not liked this about my human for all these years, and I have finally realized it can't change. My human is very easily bored and impatient. I wish this were different, but I have never been able to change it. So when, for example, somebody is, say there's somebody at the DMV, you talked about this, who is like going very carefully through a large stack of paperwork and then rereading things. I want to start leaping and screaming like a chimpanzee. But what I've done is learn to use that as a meditation time. Take a deep breath and start to and go into that amused, friendly perspective and watch and maybe even take notes on how my human is like chewing off the inside of its lips. And I've learned to actually, once I remember that, I remember to relax. I start to breathe more easily, and I can accept this thing in my human and basically sustain what I need to do to get along with the culture too.
Yeah.
So what does yours do? What's something you accept about yourself?
So this is like boots on the ground. This is us training our humans, right?
Yeah,
In a way.
yeah.
And that's what you're doing in the DMV. So my human will never be consistent through, say, a year. So she'll have like months of being really on top of things and months where the things are on top of her. And there just does not seem to be a way around that. I've talked about this on the podcast before, but each mode that my human goes into feels like the ultimate personality. But
you always feel like, now I'm myself.
now I'm truly myself.
Now I'm going
and
to
this
make
is how
stews.
and this is how it will continue for the rest of time. But I'm getting much better at understanding that it won't last. It is what it is right now.
Yeah.
And like just letting that be as one season gives way to another, and knowing that they do come back around as well.
And the culture does have this permanency and consistency thing, like be the same creature throughout the year and for always. And that's just not how my human works at all.
No, we've talked about that quite a lot, I think, on this. So
yeah.
And also I should say though that while we talk about like the things our humans do, if your human likes murdering people in a serial kind of way, like I don't mean one little murder here or there, but like if it's getting to be a bit of a pattern, maybe look at that. Also, if your human chews loudly in public, that's something you might want to curb.
Right. That said, I used to always make those disclaimers. Like if your inner child turns out to be a psychopath, you may need to take some steps. But I have to say, I've coached like hundreds and hundreds of people, and the whole goal always was find out who you really are. Let's find out who you really are. I didn't use the word who your human is, but it was pretty much the same. And I've never
I think
found
human was implied.
Implied for most. But I think there's never been a person who found their own happiness, what brought them joy and lit them up, that was harmful to other people. Quite the opposite. It was always, as they became happier and more relaxed, their human made other humans feel better.
Yeah, so. and whether or not that's true of all humans running around, we can't say, but you're just saying in your experience.
Yeah, there are people I fired because, they didn't seem that way to me. But, yeah, I've worked with prisoners in jail and everything, and they, at their core, when you got through it all, if you let them be their human was beneficial to all beings.
All right, so where are we in our how to train your human?
We are to step 4.
Love it.
And that is, once you've accepted what you cannot change about your human, work out a cover. Speaking of my coaching, we always do this. Work out a cover story and a cover act. Like, you know how comedians go on and they look like they're just riffing, but they actually work that material really in detail, some of them. Very few of them are just improvising as they go. So like when you went to the office or to the library, there was an office inside the library. Point of fact. There was a Starbucks inside the Starbucks inside the library.
It's a dream within a dream.
It's all these fractals. We're making a podcast within a podcast within a podcast within a mustard bottle. Now, my point was going to be that you can get your human trained to have an act that makes it move smoothly through the system wherever you are. And that's what you did. You slowly figured out how to let your human not go to the library and yet fill all the requirements that the culture gave you for appearing to work at the library.
That's right.
So your cover story and your cover act, it means that you're working together with your creature to negotiate the cultural waters you have to navigate without catching too much flack or even causing too much attention, let alone ending up in prison. Yeah.
Especially if you're working towards the ultimate exit strategy from the culture. You know, I mean, I don't know. I think there's a recipe for lives of quiet desperation in there if we're not careful. But
oh, yeah. Yeah, you can't take this. Here's the thing. If your animal doesn't love to be in the office and you make it be in the office all the time, it will ultimately fail to do it. It'll burn out. I'm so fascinated that service dogs, which are bred to be of service to humans and love you can breed dogs to love things with such specificity. A basset hound will drop and die in its tracks rather than stop hunting something that you've told it to hunt. I mean, dogs are really specific about their jobs, and service dogs love to serve. But if the owner doesn't play with the dog, take off the little harness and throw a ball, play some kind of game, the animal will lose its joy, and then it won't be able to do the job that it really does genuinely love, because nothing can be shackled to one system of behavior forever, not if it's alive. And our humans are alive. So,
at least for now. Yeah.
So yeah, those are the steps. You learn to see your human, befriend it, accept it, and then coach it to go through the world of culture without losing its essential nature. And then I think you'll be much more at peace with yourself and with the world, the way wild animals seem to be at peace, just being what they are.
So basically, we call this How to Train Your Human. And I think that where we've landed is how to train your human is be in cahoots with your human, right?
It was right in front of me all the time. I didn't see it.
Like we want to have our humans back above all, you know, and be tolerant and amused at its foibles and very forgiving. And I think, honestly, at the end of the day, that's how we stay wild.
We hope you're enjoying Bewildered. If you're in the USA and want to be notified when a new episode comes out, text the word WILD to 570-873-0144. We're also on Instagram. Our handle is Bewildered Podcast. You can follow us to get updates, hear funny snippets and outtakes, and chat with other fans of the show. Bewildered is produced by Scott Forster with support from the brilliant team at MBI. And remember, if you're having fun, please rate and review and stay wild.